everybody, Progress Report fans. We're back yet again with my good friend and co-host Mike Farley.
Takes a lot to stop us, Bob.
It takes a lot to stop us, and we're
13 years running.
13 years running, and now we have a much upgraded operation. Tonight is going to be
Worldwide Progress Network.
It's going to be our very first show, and this is going to be a podcast.
Yes, this is our first podcast. We're starting right now. I've been told to say, get it where you get your podcasts, and we'll figure out where we're going to put it as soon as we can. But for now, we are ripping our first podcast off the show, and we will be doing that every week going forward.
Yeah. And again, thanks to Megan, Mike's daughter, who has been so terrific in her appointed role as our media specialist manager. Social media manager,
yeah.
Which I think is just terrific.
Yeah, don't forget, you can see us on Facebook. You can see us on YouTube. When you do that, please like us, follow us, subscribe. It's very important. We want to get
and Instagram.
And we're on Instagram, too. Actually, our Instagram page, Bob, is bigger now than our Facebook page.
Oh, my God. Today, Channel 23, tomorrow, the world.
We're on fire.
Yeah,
we are on fire. But anyway, we're doing all this for you folks so that we're going to start getting more interactive. Oh, interactive. We have a poll up on our Facebook page. We're running a Facebook poll. We're going to run it to the end of the month. It's the first poll we're doing. We're going to run it long. We may get to the point where we do them every 2 weeks, every week. But we want to get some engagement. So go on our Facebook page, check out the poll, and tell us how you feel. This poll is about no-fault absentee balloting. The provision that's
big issue.
It's
been a big issue for a while in New Hampshire, and it's
so let us know how you feel.
Yeah, and by the way, of course, you can still call us. We still welcome our callers.
Join the first podcast. Make history.
603-640-3091, and we are delighted to have you join us if you choose to engage with it that way, and we'll be very welcome to have you do that. We have two terrific guests tonight. One is a good friend of the show who's been with us many times, one of the real contributing part of our governing body here in the city, Alderman Pat Long, representing Ward 3 downtown, also a longtime serving state rep, has been and probably still is the chair of the Manchester delegation at the State House, which of course, because of Manchester's size in relation to the rest of the communities in the city, is the largest delegation in the State House. So that's a very important thing and represents the interests of Manchester, not only in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, but in that capacity too. And we're very pleased to welcome back, after too long an absence, Mike Whitten, who is now and has been for many years, the director of the New Hampshire, Manchester Transit Authority, which also, although he's trying to get relieved of this burden, running the school bus operation for the city of Manchester, which has been happening for many years. And last time I remember he was here, Manchester was only 3 communities in the entire country that have the school bus operation operated by their transit authority. And he's a guy that worked his way up from the very beginning as a bus driver up to being the manager, which he's been for how many years, Mike?
The last 12 years.
The last 12 years. In one of which he was named, out of 31,000 people eligible for this, the Small Transit System Manager of the Year, which I did not know, but that's a very fine acknowledgement. So we're going to talk about transit, and I think with Pat, if we have time, we'll get into some of the things that have been happening that he's well aware of as a concerned member of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen about trying to help deal with our always seemingly intractable, but really it's being addressed, our problem of homeless people in the city of Manchester. But do you want to start off with something?
Well, before that, Bob, I know we've had this show lined up since last week, but I asked if we could call an audible here because last night was the State of the Union address.
Yep.
And Dark Brandon showed up, and it was a a heck of a speech. I don't think I've ever seen a Joe Biden speech that was that good. But that wasn't even the best part of it. The best part of it was the heckling. It turned into a real brouhaha, quite a clown show, and I'd like to talk about it a little bit at the other end of it. But I brought a little video. It's only about 2.5, 3 minutes long about this particular highlight. And folks, as you're going into it, there's going to be a couple scenes where they cut to the president. I just want you to take a look at his face and look at Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris's face behind him, and we'll talk about that at the other side of the video.
Okay.
Nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate was added by just one administration alone, the last one. They're the facts. Check it out. Check it out. How did Congress respond to that debt? They did the right thing. They lifted the debt ceiling 3 times without preconditions or crisis. Some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't recess.
Well, the reason I said to look at his face is because I don't know if you could see it, but there's a little smile, a little smirk on his face. This was a planned thing, I believe, and they took the bait. And because at the end of this, the video doesn't show it, but at the end of this, he says, "Well, you did see him say, I appreciate conversion." At the end, he says, "Okay, so Social Security and Medicare are not on the table anymore."
Yeah, so he has them all stand up if they agreed with that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you know, I mean, it was really beautiful. It was unseemly, and we certainly are appalled by that kind of behavior in the halls of Congress. It shouldn't be done. It was never done until recently. But I just think this president, in his quiet, subtle way, really knows what he's doing.
And you were not a Biden supporter.
I was not a Biden supporter. You know, my politics are a little bit more progressive than a little bit more liberal than what he wants to do. But
you're a damn communist, Mike. Let's face it.
I wouldn't say that. I would say I'm a communitarian.
Communitarian. Okay.
I would say that. I do believe that we all have an obligation to take care of each other, and that includes in our economy and in our politics. So yes, that I will accept that. But,
well, did you hear what Kevin McCarthy had to say about it today? The president go to the Republicans into doing it.
Yes, exactly.
That cracked me up. We know we look bad, but it was his fault that we look bad because he made us do it. Jeez. Anyway.
Billy's touching me. Ma, Billy's touching me.
Yeah. Well, one more quick thing, and then we're not going to deprive our guests of their chance to be the stars of the show, which we like them to be. And you know, February 16th is a national holiday. What is that holiday?
It is Lincoln and Washington's birthday, or Washington and Lincoln's birthday.
It is Washington's birthday. That's what it is.
Okay.
And
I know where this is going.
You can buy a Subaru. I saw a Subaru ad. We're having a Washington's birthday sale. Don't buy a car from everybody that says we're having a President's Day sale. I'm not celebrating the presidency of Donald Trump or Buchanan or the second Bush.
I'm not Franklin Pierce.
Not even Franklin Pierce, a pro-slavery guy from New Hampshire. I'm not celebrating, but I am willing to celebrate George Washington's birthday. Okay, that's it.
Good job, Bob. You kept it short and sweet. You do it every year, you know. I don't know if you realize this, but you do it every year.
I know. Well, that's I enjoy doing it, and I think it's worth doing. Anyway, let's turn.
Pivot. We're going to pivot.
We're going to pivot. Let's talk to Mike Whitten about what's happening with Manchester Transit. I told you, Mike, that I had a couple things I particularly wanted to talk about, and Pat, you certainly can chip in. I was distressed to learn that we no longer have a downtown bus terminal where people don't have to stand on the sidewalk to get on the bus. Either your buses, or if you want to take a bus to Boston or New York or wherever, the Canal Street place has been closed, and I learned this from Pat, and I should have known it because I've been there. Been closed for 4 years. Now, a while ago, my wife, my former wife, the mother of my children, had to go down to her job at Harvard, and there's one bus a day that leaves from that place, and I'm sure you know this. I don't know what it is, at 5:30 in the morning or something. And then there's one bus that stops there on the way back, and that's like at 6:30 night. And I'd arranged to pick her up. And there she is getting off that bus in that dark station, and not very friendly. And you can't buy a ticket to go anywhere on any bus system except yours, because you do serve beyond the city of Manchester, and you want to talk about that. But I'm just really shocked that we don't. When they opened that facility, there was an uproar because of the limited service there, because they were opening the Exit 5 in Londonderry North, and that's a big station, and it's got free parking, but it's 12 miles further to drive, and some people like to be able to get a bus in Manchester. So you want to talk about that issue, and then we can go on to some other things.
Sure. So we're a block away. So MTA's hub has always been at Veterans Park and across the street at Center of New Hampshire. So you're right, the building's been abandoned for a few years now. It's not a very appealing location for a bus terminal. It's just too small. I think there's 3 parking spaces. You can get 2 buses in there. MTA, for example, runs 12 buses hourly. So we wouldn't come close to fitting. I agree with you that it's far past time to have some type of transit facility. It breaks my heart to see days like Friday when it was so cold and our passengers are standing outside in that weather. There's no protection from the elements. There's no restrooms. We do operate the Welcome Center at Veterans Park now, so that gives them, the passengers who are using our hub, a place to get in out of the cold. There are bathrooms there. They can buy their tickets there. We staff that all day long.
Oh, you do? I wasn't even aware of that, so that's good.
And that's new in the last couple of years. So that's been great to have that. But I continue to look for a way to finance a transit center on our own. I think the problem has been we've always been tied to rail. And it's been, don't build a bus station because you're going to need a rail station. It's been 4 decades of that. Meanwhile, every winter, the bus riders freeze. Yeah. I think we're going to have to go first.
What would be the problem of anticipating a rail station and building a bus station at that location?
I think that's brilliant.
Well, problem solved. We can end the show segment.
So we did a preliminary site design, concept design, for exactly that. MTA happens to have significant property that is directly parallel with the rail. So land acquisition becomes a much simpler matter. We went to Athens, Georgia, to Clark County down there. They did the exact same thing. So Athens Transit built a multimodal transit center that their bus service uses, so does the University of Georgia. And it's on the rail so that if at some point MARTA from Atlanta extends the rail out, the station can accommodate that. But in the meantime, bus passengers have something that they can use.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the hopes with New Hampshire too. I know we've met with a group. You were involved with respect to where would we put a commuter rail station, and in that station it includes
the Market Basket location was considered at one point.
Yeah, there were actually there were a couple, 2 or 3 locations for us to pick, and I think we picked the better one, that less intrusive.
Pat, how does that play in? We saw just within the past couple of months a redevelopment plan for the south end of the Elm Street Commercial District with the flyover road and all that. How does that play in as far as locating with what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, that all accommodates that. That all those plans had this transportation center in mind. So it would just add to it.
Well, given the constant opposition, I think misguided, to the return of commuter rail, because it might cost $1 in New Hampshire revenues or $2. Isn't it time to just move ahead with a decent bus station for people to use, both for the city transit, as Mike's been talking about, and people who want to use service to Boston or New York?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and Mike may know better. I'm not sure if they're interested. In Manchester, they got Londonderry. I know I've sat at this transportation center. There may be 4 or 5 people a month that are getting off. I haven't seen anybody really waiting there for a pickup, but I guess there has been some people waiting there for a pickup. I'm not even sure if I'm in Boston and want a ticket to Manchester, I don't know if that's possible, or do I have to go to Londonderry? And speaking with the people that got off in Manchester, they asked the driver, they were going to Concord. They asked the driver if they could be let off in Manchester, and the driver said sure. And that's how that works.
So if the driver's having a bad day, you're on your way to Concord?
That's right. And you gotta find a ride back.
I believe it's only one one arrival from Boston to
But
Manchester.
that's not within the control of the city. That's the state subsidized
Correct.
bus company.
Right.
You know, that
Yeah.
gets free buses that you
Yeah.
and I pay for.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and-
back when the baseball field was being developed, there was a state plan to put a transportation center where the baseball stadium is, including the MTA, parking garage, and bus stop before they came up with Londonderry. So prior to my term on the Alderman, I don't know what those discussions
I guess
were. but-
my point of bringing that up is, you know, people can complain to the alderman, they can complain to the MTA. You got nothing to say about it. It's this private company that makes a profit using free buses from the state of New Hampshire, and they decide where they're going to stop.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I do have that right. I thought I would be corrected. I really did,
No,
because
right.
it can't be that
it's-
snidey
yeah,
whiplash.
it's not up to us.
You know?
Yeah, and you know, I don't know if it was Continental or Boston Express or whomever that was selling tickets there decided it's not worth our employees sitting there and selling tickets.
Gotta love those public-private
So-
partnerships there, Bob. You know how I feel about those.
Well, they were tied in with the state. They were tied into Londonderry, not Manchester. So
Yeah, the contract's through NHDOT, and the locations they use now are the state-owned parking rights. So that's what they're on the hook contractually to operate, and Canal Street isn't state-owned, so
right.
they had
It's
the
not
chance.
state-owned.
It's not. So
Okay.
when they had the chance, they stopped.
Okay. So here's another issue, and then I know you've got some exciting things that you're talking about that are coming on, but another issue I thought I'd ask you about. Last time you were here, I remember you said there were three sort of routes or areas of the city or particular streets that aren't served by the transit. I think one was Boynton Street, one was Goffstown Road out to the Goffstown line, and I can't remember what the third one is. Are there plans to add service there? And the other thing is about, why don't we offer service on Sundays?
Let's do the good news first. Yes. So the third one's actually where we're going to start. So it's that Webster, Campbell era, Northside Plaza
Okay.
section of the city. That's the densest of the three, in addition to Goffstown Road and Boynton Street. And through the city's support, last year in the CIP budget, we had a vehicle funded to launch something that's called microtransit. So it's kind of like, think of Uber meets public transit. And we're going to be deploying that this summer in that section. So all of the residents of North Union Street, Campbell era, and then city residents who can take a bus downtown will be able to connect if they want to get to Northside Plaza, the restaurants and shopping that's there. And you run that as kind of a proof of concept to see, hey, if this is successful, then we can expand
Now,
that
when
out
you
to the
say
other two
Uber
locations.
meets, typical transit, is this going to be a scheduled service or is this going to be an on-demand or?
Be
how's it
on
work?
demand, but
Okay.
with real time. So you go into the app and you'd request the ride, and it will kind of congregate folks. So if you've got 2 or 3 people that are trying to get to Northside Plaza to go to Hannaford at the same time, you pick them all up at once and bring them out there. But if there's not demand, you're not running a bus that's empty. A fixed route, there's just
Yeah,
not enough
yeah.
demand in any of those
Yeah,
corridors
yeah.
to, justify running it hourly,
Okay.
whether they're there or not.
So I would fill out the app. Let's say I want to go to the north
Northside Plaza?
Northside Plaza and 3 o'clock. I would hear back that okay, it's 3:30. It's 3:30 because you got 7 or 8 people that are interested in that time.
It'd even short of that, being like 305 or 310, and it
Okay.
will tell you, okay, so you're at Union Street, go to Union and North Acres, or Union and Era. Pick your whatever your nearest corner is,
Yeah.
and it will in real time path that van, so it can pick everybody up who's heading out there. Then it'll do it in reverse, and it just keeps cycling all day long.
Okay.
So I'd like to now offer you, Mike, a chance to talk about something more positive, and your new operating a new coach service on a circular basis between the airport, Manchester, and I forget where else. But tell us about that and when that's going to happen.
Yeah, so silver lining of a sister transit property that had to make a difficult decision, Merrimack Valley Regional Transit Authority down in Massachusetts announced last fall that they were suspending permanently their commuter service to Boston. So as soon as we saw that, we reached out and inquired about their plans for their FTA-funded coach buses. And we're told that they were looking for an FTA direct recipient to kind of take on that responsibility. So we agreed to take 3 of them. So we are now kind of upfitting those, getting them ready for revenue service here. About $1.2 million worth of bus that didn't cost the city of Manchester a nickel. So great opportunity, and it will let us take those Concord and Nashua Express buses that right now are done with regular transit buses and deploy over-the-road coach buses, which will make it much more comfortable, much more appealing.
So this will be your service going to Concord and Nashua?
Yep.
And the airport on the way to Nashua?
Yes, so what we'll do is this summer when that rolls out is restructure it so that right now the Concord and Nashua Expresses just intermingle with all the others. So you might come in from Concord and that bus then goes out South Willow Street, or come up from Nashua and then it goes to Bremer, because the bus does everything. The driver's schedules will be completely reworked so that that driver will just go Concord to Nashua, to Concord to Nashua. That will be their schedule back and forth, and that will let us put the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport in the middle. So residents of Manchester have always been able to get there with route number 3. That will open the airport up to direct transfer-free connections to Concord and to Nashua, who both have had that service to Logan through Boston Express, but haven't been able to get comparable service to New Hampshire's airport. Right. That will go away this summer. We'll be able to offer them the same level of service right here.
Mr. Kitchens at Manchester Airport is pretty excited about that, isn't he?
He is, and he's doing a great job. So whatever we can do to help him, we're all in.
Now, that will be a scheduled service? And
that will be.
And will the fares be the same as they are for the other services your system offers?
Yeah, they're the same fares they are right now. So those are both Zone 2, so it's a $5 day pass. So you would buy that. That gets you access to all of our routes all day long. So if you're coming to the city and you're going back, that's round trip. If you're flying, you would need another one once you came back whenever you landed if it was a different day.
What are the hours of service going to be on that?
Starts at 5:30 in the morning, and right now it runs through 6:30 at night, but we've expanded 3 routes already into the evening up till 9:30 at night. So if this is successful, there's certainly the chance to add on some more evening service. There's not a lot of departures from the airport at night, so...
What are your late night routes?
So
I didn't realize you had routes running late night.
Yeah, the number 11, which is the front street, goes out to Manchester Community College. Number 5, which is River Road, Southern New Hampshire University, and the Green Dash, which does the Millyard and UNH. So we started with the routes. Those 3 were the most appealing because they're self-contained. So if you think of like the number 5, a lot of the students who go to SNU live along River Road at a lot of the apartments. So you don't need connections. One of the questions I get a lot is, well, why didn't you start with the South Willow? Because it's our most popular run. That's the one that goes out to the Mall of New Hampshire, goes to Walmart, goes to South Willow Street. Very few people, though, live on that route. They all come from other parts of the city and transfer downtown.
So they get downtown.
So I'd only
and
get
have
them
nowhere to
half
go.
of what they need.
Right.
So that one really needs to wait until the residential routes are there so that somebody can make the whole trip. So.
Well, and this service is starting when?
That service is already out there. So the
Okay.
evening service has been in place for a couple of years. New since the last time. Last time you asked me why we don't have night service and Sunday service. So hopefully by the next time I'm here, I have something for you on Sundays.
Okay. I hope you do, because I learned some time ago that the Nashua system does operate at least to some degree on Sundays.
Yep.
And we're a bigger city and we don't. Seems like a
How is ridership in general? I know I'm sure it's differentiated route to route, time to time, season to season. But generally speaking, how are we trending as a city? Are you seeing level demand? Is demand increasing? What are you seeing?
Double-digit growth. So,
No kidding.
Yep, the ridership has been really strong the last couple of years. We, like everybody in the country, 2020, we took a beating. So much of our ridership is based on students, healthcare, and jobs. And when everybody went remote and students weren't on campus, that hurt. That's the backbone of what we do. So as that has come back, we have been able to kind of meet the changing demands. We've made it a priority to keep our service design flexible so that as those things return, we don't just put the service back the way it used to be. We try to build it for what we see coming ahead for demand so that we're already there.
Yeah, how do you predict that?
My question is
Just
exactly
you got to talk to the riders. So one of the things that I think is the most important is getting out there and talking to our stakeholders, whether that's the riders themselves, but also the employers, the healthcare facilities, the city. It's why I still drive. I still ride the buses so that I keep that connection. It is very easy to get locked away in the office and stare at budget spreadsheets, and you start to drift away and start thinking, oh, well, I know what they really need. No, they know what they need. So I need to talk to them, and then they will share that with me, and I do everything I can to help meet that need.
Do you use surveys of the passengers to help you get informed?
We do surveys. We found that we get better results just through conversation, just kind of talking to people and taking notes. The problem with surveys is some people will take them over and over again because they really want you to know their point of view, and a bunch of people don't care. They won't bother. So you don't really get a representative survey. Whereas if you just out there and you respectfully talk to somebody on the bus and let them know that you actually want to hear what it is they have to say, whether it's good or bad, and try to highlight the good and see where we can fix the bad.
Yeah, and I think that's what's bringing us success is the flexibility, the creativity of, when you talk to people that ride the bus.
Bus routes, right? Flexibility. I like it.
Exactly. They know that this isn't going to be for the next 50 years. If there's a need somewhere, all I have to do is call somebody and they'll look into it, and the need's taken care of. I'm glad to hear of the ridership that's doubling like that. I mean, that's
There's a lot of people see the buses going up and down Elm Street or wherever, and they see very few passengers on, and they assume that there's a system's overbuilt. But that's only an instant in time, I guess, is the point, that there is that you wouldn't be doing this service if there was not a demand that you're meeting, right?
Yeah, we actually did a bunch of ride-alongs my first couple of years because we had a lot of people in the community who were making that argument. You got the big empty buses. The problem is the hub is at Veterans Park. So when you see the bus on Elm Street, you are seeing it either at the very first stop as it goes out or the very last stop once it's come in. So we got a lot of the community members together, and I told them, you pick the route, you pick the day. I don't want you to think that I'm forcing a card on you. And come ride with me. Ride it for the full hour and see how many people get on and off that bus all the way out to the mall and all the way back in. Totally changed perceptions because you need to see more than just 2 city blocks of a hour-long route.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people get a misconception for exactly that reason. In addition to this coach service, what other things do you see coming down that may be new and interesting?
So I think we'll continue regionalizing the service. In 2010, when I took over, we literally, Pat will remember, turned around at the city borders. We were the Manchester Transit Authority in name and in practice. And now we're in Concord and Nashua and Goffstown and Hooksett, New Boston, Chester, Salem, Derry. I mean, you could draw a line from Concord to Nashua over to Salem and then back up to Concord and fill in almost that entire triangle with MTA. And it's how we've opened more opportunity for people because people's needs don't just end at the city line. You need to get to job access or healthcare or education that sometimes is across the border. So we merged with CART, the Cooperative Alliance for Regional Transportation, that used to be its own kind of small transit system that did Londonderry and Salem and Derry. That's now a brand within MTA, so that's directly operated by us. And one of the benefits to that regionalization, it's an obvious benefit to the riders because you can get to any of these communities and all of those communities can get to Manchester. But even for people that live in the city and never set foot on a bus, there's still only one me. There's one finance, one set of mechanics, so that overhead that the system has is now spread over all of these other communities. So Manchester's taxpayers see a significant savings in that because there's more people that carry the weight. So a regional system is just better for everyone.
Do you still see the stigma of bus riding? Getting on a bus? I know you accommodate bikes now, and I know people that are riding bikes that are saying this is fantastic because now I can take the bus to wherever and grab my bike off of it.
One of the things actually that really changed that the most, I'm really glad that we did this. Mayor Craig had approached me a couple of years ago about having the high school students ride for free. And that has been a huge success, but not just because the high school students get on the bus and now see that, hey, transit can get me to the mall. It can get me to any of these different places that they want to go without mom or dad having to drive me. But it was the parents who maybe still don't ride the bus, but now have that comfort level with allowing their son or daughter to ride, and they're not worried about it. Because you see transit in movies, and it's never good. It's always a bunch of passed out people in the back of the bus. That's not here. We're not a giant urban center that kind of has some of those challenges. Thankfully, it's clean, it's friendly, it's a nice experience.
I had no idea your system was extensive as it is, all the way down to Salem, Chester. I had no idea, and I think a lot of people are going to be watching the show or catching us on YouTube, I hope, probably didn't either. But how about service between Manchester and Exeter and on to Portsmouth? Exeter is a particularly interesting one because we do have rail service in Exeter.
Or the beach, actually. There used to be a
Or the beach.
summertime
Or the beach,
run.
absolutely, the beach.
Yeah, so we have seasonal service to Hampton Beach.
Yeah.
So it runs
That's
from,
been on for a
from
long
June,
time.
yeah, through September. So
Will
we
that be
brought
one of the coaches, or is that still...
probably. Now that we have those, that makes sense because the beach only runs on Saturdays, so that vehicle is available. The coaches are fully accessible, so folks with mobility devices welcome to ride with us, and they can hold more people. So we have to use multiple transit buses each Saturday for the beach, just because the demand is so high. One bus can't accommodate it.
Wow.
So that's been great. We have seasonal service to Deerfield Fair. We do things like the Holiday Light Tour with the
Right,
Manchester
yeah.
Police Department in December. We're looking to do excursions like that kind of throughout the year, just as a way to reach out to the community so that, that may be the one time a year you ride the bus. But if it's a positive experience, then that's somebody who's going to
You might
support
come back,
transit.
yeah. Absolutely. So what about service to the seacoast?
Yeah, I mean, we would be open to exploring it. It's got two big challenges. One is just how little there is in between the two. The distance to Portsmouth is so much further than it is to Concord or to Nashua.
Yeah.
And those two cities have the advantage that we're in the middle and you can kind of interline, so you get all three on one. It's technically two routes, but it operates in one giant circle.
Yeah.
There is not a lot in the middle of here in Portsmouth. The state had tried to do an east-west kind of, I think it was Flightline that operated it, and they were even doing demand response, so it was just on an as-needed, and it wasn't financially viable.
Well, we have a call on the line. Caller, thank you for calling the Progress Report. What have you got to say?
Hi. Well, I'm really excited to see Mr. Whitten on the show. I have a couple of questions. The first one is a couple of years ago when I was doing some research about passenger rail, I went to some of the park and rides at the bus terminals, and one thing that I noted was in Nashua there was actually a Nashua city bus that would pick people up at that park and ride and then take them into downtown Nashua. And since we have such limited service at our bus station, I was wondering first if there was was a bus that goes to the London area or whatever, park and ride, so that people can get on the Boston Express bus to go to Boston. And the second question that I have is that I haven't taken a Manchester Transit bus since you used to put the little tokens or the quarters into the little gizmo that was in the front of the bus. And I don't even know how to buy a ticket for the bus.
Great question.
So
Good
those are my
questions.
two questions, and I'm going to get off so that I can hear the answers.
Thanks very much. Great
Thank you.
questions.
Those are good questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in, and look forward to seeing you on the bus because it's really easy. So if you're riding locally, it's $2. You can pay with cash. You can pay if you have a $5 bill. You can put that in, and it will give you a stored value card for $3. So it's not, if you don't have exact fare, you lose your money. We let you keep that. You can buy the tickets online. You can soon, hopefully this summer, you'll be able to pay right with your phone. So MTA is implementing right now, we're in kind of the final stages of testing for mobile payment. So the fare boxes, we've just finished a fleet replacement. 2022 was the last 4 buses came in. So as those now went into revenue service, they're all equipped with brand new fare boxes that have that phone reading technology. So you'll do it through your bank. So we're not going to have any access to your personal banking information. You do that, it will connect with Chase, who is the vendor we're working with, and they will provide for your phone a QR code. And all you do is scan that. That just tells the fare box, yes, this person is paid. It doesn't tell you how, it doesn't have link to the money, nothing like that. So then you don't even have to carry cash. You just, boom.
Yeah, so do you download an app for the Manchester Transit and that's what you get?
And it's the same one that you would be using right now. So you may have seen if you've been out on the 8, the 10, a couple of our routes have already had all of the bus stop signs replaced. We hadn't done this in years. So we've been working to replace all of those, and it's got the new branding in it, but it also has the QR code right on there, so you can scan right from the bus stop, and it will bring up on your phone, so you can see, all right, when is the bus scheduled to be here? But more importantly, in real time, where is the bus? Is it on time? Is it running 10 minutes late because it's snowing? I've got time to run in and get a coffee or stay warm. It's just kind of more modern. We're a big city in New Hampshire. We need to have things like that.
Takes place. You step up right there.
It's right there. It's right there
Boom.
on the sign. Yeah. So
Or if currently you can slide a $5 bill in,
yeah.
like at the car wash, get your change.
You can buy the day passes
Token
right
for
on the
the
buses.
vacuum.
You can buy them at the Welcome Center. You can buy them online. For $5, you can ride unlimited. Or if you're like 65 or older, or if you have Medicare, one of those red, white, and blue Medicare cards, or an MTA half-fare ID card if you have a disability or you're a Step Saver user or something like that, it's half price, so $250. You can ride as many buses as you want all day long, including up to Concord and on down to Nashua.
Now, there was another question
cool.
before that, though. How about service down to the Park and Ride to kind of bring that back to Manchester? So, you can use the Boston Express down Boston, but you don't have to wait for that one lonely bus that used to come by.
Yeah, so the Concord service is what the caller would want to use. So the Concord Express goes, in addition to the State House, it goes to Stickney Ave, which is the state park and ride there that you can connect with Boston Express and you can get to Boston. We don't go to Londonderry's park and ride because it's kind of duplicative. You're going to connect to the same, but it leaves Concord, drives down 93, and goes to exit 5. So there's
Well,
not.
you're 20 or 30 minutes closer to Boston if you get on at Londonderry.
This is true, but we have to pay. So when we go to Stickney Ave, so we collect $5 for the ride because you buy that day pass. We pay 20% of that to Concord Coach for the privilege of docking at the state-owned park and ride. They take $1 out of every $5 fare. So
It's that public-private partnership in action.
yeah, it's tough to do that at a lot of different locations. It just eats into. We don't get a whole lot of fare box to begin with, and I can't lose 20% of it too often.
I'm enjoying this show because it's illustrating something that I've been saying for a long time.
Let's talk about your fleet for just a minute. The buses I'm seeing look pretty spiffy. Is your fleet entirely? I mean, have they all gone to natural gas? How environmentally clean are they, and how new are they?
So we're skipping natural gas. We don't have any CNG buses. That's something that Nashua has. The buses that you see out there, the maroon ones, now it's easy. It used to be the maroon and silver were the new ones, the red, white, and blue were the old ones. There are no red, white, and blues. They're gone. So all of the new ones run on biodiesel, a B20 blend. Mm-hmm. And our plan is that as these now get retired, we think we'll move to all electric. It didn't have the range when we started this in 2017, and we did one multi-year bid so that we could ensure continuity across the fleet. We didn't want to bid every year and get different buses, and then you have to inventory all kinds of different parts.
When might this transition happen?
So our oldest bus is now 2017, which means it'll be up for replacement in 2029. And my hope is by then they figured out the batteries and the range for the cold weather.
Yeah.
In New England, just what they have on the market right now doesn't do it for us.
How about the pricing of electric? Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah, it's you really, the only way it's viable is if you get a grant that's covering 80-90% of it.
Are there any municipalities that have gone to electric buses?
I don't know of any up here.
Yeah.
So
Maybe in warmer climates. I don't know.
Yeah, there's probably, I would think Massachusetts and Connecticut, you get cities like Hartford. It wouldn't surprise me. I know they have a hydrogen fuel cell program that they did there.
Turning to an entirely different subject, well, not all that different, but Manchester is one of just 3 communities that also operates the school transportation system for the Manchester School District. And I was interested to learn that you are looking for somebody to come in and take over that responsibility. And how's that going, and why do you want to divest of the operation of the buses for the school district?
Sure, and it's a good segue. I should have mentioned on your last question too, the school buses, we have actually been converting over the last 3 years to propane. So that has been great, and we've ordered our first 2 transit cutaways. So those are the smaller buses that will be propane powered. So you'll see a big thing this spring once they get delivered. We've worked with Roush, a company out of Michigan. You probably know them through racing. It's the same Roush. These will be the first propane-powered transit vehicles in New England. So that has been great, but that's been an advantage of having both. So we were able to get funding through the VW program for school busing, and that not only provided some of the funding for the propane school buses, but also critically the fueling infrastructure. Because unlike diesel or gasoline, you can't just go anywhere and fill up on propane. We had to have that kind of put in at MTA. So that's been a really exciting thing to kind of see come to fruition. But school, it really is just about the driver shortage. I mean, it has been
Yeah, that's got to be an acute problem for you.
so hard since COVID. You know, but at this point, this is now our second school year, kind of after 2020. You kind of 2021, you're willing to write it off. Okay, maybe some people will come back. It's just not happening.
How do you meet the demand? I mean, you advertise.
You don't.
Yeah. Well,
So we do.
the
What
kids gotta
happens
be
with us?
brought to school and picked up every day.
Yeah, what happens at MTA? Literally every afternoon, the office empties. I drive every morning. I drive every afternoon.
Wow.
I don't mind doing it, but
It takes
I
away
ca-
from the
yeah,
other work
I only
that you
have
should
so
be
many
doing.
hours in the day. So
right.
when my assistant director or my dispatchers, my operations team, and I are out there driving a school run, we're not doing the planning and the grant applications and everything that you need to do to keep things moving forward. So our contract with the district is a 3-year contract. This was the last year, so we let the district know more than a year ago we didn't intend to renew, so that they would have time, because they don't want this to be a problem for the district. We want this to be a successful transition. My understanding is they did put it out to bid. They unfortunately got no bidders, so we're gonna work with the district.
I got to
and the
assume
city.
that up and down the industry, school bus drivers are hard to come by.
Everybody is short.
Everybody's
You know,
screaming
it's
for
not
them.
Manchester that is unique, and
that's
there
true.
Not
are
at
no
all.
available school bus drivers.
Well, and if you think about it, trucking has a huge shortage. There's not enough commercial truck drivers, and that's full-time benefited gigs. So if anybody with a commercial driver's license can get a full-time job like that, you're trying to get people for 4 hours a day, and they're not even for continuous. Come drive from 6 o'clock till 8:30 in the morning, and then take 5 hours off, and come back at 1:30 and drive till 3:30. It doesn't fit well with other part-time jobs.
Right.
It really historically had always worked because it was something retirees would do for just a little kind of extra pocket change or just to keep busy, but they had done their career and were retired, or for parents of young kids, because you can bring your kids on the bus. So it's a job that you can do that you don't need childcare. But what we saw coming out of the pandemic is the seniors gone. The almost entirely.
Why? We got lots of seniors, more than ever.
Yeah, but they're
the
not
exposure.
interested. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exposure.
It's a
if you're
risk.
concerned about exposure
Yeah.
to COVID, there are far better places to work than inside a enclosed school bus packed with 50 open mouths breathing.
Yeah.
It's a really, if you're at a high risk,
Yeah.
it's a
Right.
difficult
Yeah.
sell.
Yeah.
And there's so much work from home now that if you have childcare issues, why even come to MTA and get on a bus at 6 o'clock in the morning? You can work from your living room.
Right.
So losing those two, that was 2/3 of our drivers.
There's real factors.
And I don't see either of those pieces kind of changing. Like, it's not like remote work is going to go away and everything is going to go back the way it used to be.
So if
people
there's
like
no
it.
bidders for this school district contract, you're going to be stuck with it?
I don't know. We'll still work through that process. I know they plan to re-release the bid, perhaps with some modifications to address some of the concerns and feedback that they heard. I can tell you MTA will work with the district and with the city to do everything we can to make it successful. What that looks like, I don't know at this point, but we can't continue to be the sole provider. It is just more demand than I have people to staff.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a question that's going to segue something I want to talk to Pat about, the homeless crisis.
Yep.
I mean, I went to see the show at the Palace Friday night, Pat, and I parked between Concord and Amherst there right in front of the garage. And there were homeless people there, and I just said, oh, brutal. I said, I hope somebody's checking. I'm sure they were. But I was just thinking, oh, what a desperate situation. Does the homeless problem affect the MTA in any way? I mean, do these people try and get on buses to be warm, or is there any way that the issues you have to deal with are affected by the homeless crisis we're facing in the city?
Sure, I think it honestly touches everything. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a segment of the community that's not impacted in some way. We haven't had, a terrible time with it. It's always been something that's been present. You have a day like Friday, people are going to come on the bus. Sometimes they have the $2.50 or the $5 and they buy a day pass, and that gives them just
They
as
can
much
ride around and
right
stay
to
warm.
ride as anyone else. What we do have is we have a one loop policy. So, if you get out to the end of the run and you haven't gotten off, you've got to at least change buses. That prevents a bus filling up with 30 people at once, and now there's no room for riders who need to get out there. But it also lets you, if you've paid your fare, to ride for the day and kind of stay warm. And we really haven't had any problems. There haven't been, vulgarity and people harassing the riders or anything like that. The people that we've had, I would say most riders don't even know that maybe that person is unhoused, because they're not causing a scene. They're just another person on the bus riding with you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Hey, with the demographics changing, you're doubling the ridership. What are you seeing in demographics? Is there a lot more young people, middle-aged people, elderly?
Yeah, so what we've seen is kind of a shift to both extremes of that. So a lot of students, so between the high school being able to ride for free, they take it to and from school, but they take it a lot in the afternoon and the evenings too, because you can get to all kinds of places. Sure. And then also the seniors. I think you're seeing that population return to places like the senior center and the libraries and hairdressers, kind of getting back to living. They were still traveling with us for the medical appointments, but that's not a great quality of life if the only time you ever leave the house is to go to the doctor.
Right.
You got to get out and live too.
Yeah.
But it's been one of the kind of unifying pieces of public transit. If you are a supporter of seniors being able to age in place, or students being able to reduce the amount of debt load that they have. Maybe they don't have to own and maintain a car, or people not having to rely so much on those social safety nets, welfare, and housing assistance. Having access to employment is a huge piece.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, I don't know how you really can be against transit, because it benefits everybody, and because of that kind of collective benefit, it even benefits taxpayers.
Manchester more and more is a multicultural city, which I celebrate. I love it. And it occurs to me that a lot of people come from cultures where public transit is much more out front than we are accustomed to here in the United States. In Europe, it's the prime method of transportation. Do you see any of that with, maybe the immigrant community in Manchester? Do you see more ridership out of that community than people who have been more accustomed to getting on the highway and driving their own, four people in 4 cars?
We've not seen as much. I think the refugee community is a prime example of a demographic group where we could work more closely with to see what is it that's serving as a barrier from them using the service more. Is it limited English proficiency? We have all of the critical documents, the schedule, everything available in different languages, but are we not communicating that in some way? Are we not getting the resources in the right hands? Because we haven't seen that spike, but you see across the country some of the most successful systems are actually on college campuses, which are incredibly diverse places and pull people in from all over the world. But they tend to have kind of 2 things in common. They're high frequency, so they're very convenient, and they're thorough. If you go to Wildcat Transit in Durham, you will see packed buses, and it's professors right beside freshmen, right beside graduate students. Like, everybody's using that bus, but that bus comes every 10 minutes. It's not like you're staying out there for an hour waiting in the cold for the bus to come along. Mm-hmm. You have to get the quality of the service and the convenience to really be competitive. So choice riders, I think, are one of those places where we really stand the most to gain from a ridership side. I think we do a phenomenal job of meeting the needs of what we call transit-dependent people. If you don't have a car available for the trip, we can get you where you need to go. It's the people who have a car, convincing them maybe you don't need to take it for this trip. Come ride with us.
Which have benefits that cascade through the community.
Yes.
Let me ask this. You talk about a 1-hour loop. Is that how all of them are set up, with one bus running every hour, or do you run like 2 buses staggered on a route so they come every half hour? How does your schedule work?
Yeah, so it's a mix. It depends on the route and kind of the demand for that area. So the South Willow is our highest performing route by a significant margin. And that is in large part because of the investment that the city and Mayor Craig made a couple of years ago with us coming out of the pandemic to double the frequency. So that bus runs every 30 minutes. So if you were to go anywhere along Route number 8 at any given time, there's a bus heading out to the Mall of New Hampshire, but there's also one heading into downtown. So even just going 60 minutes is frankly, it's just not good enough. Like you don't have to be a transit rider to know when service is good enough, because you just have to ask yourself, would I wait? So would you stand out there, now in February and wait 60 minutes for a ride? No. If you pull up Uber and they say it could be an hour, stand on this corner, you would move on to the next option and find another way to get there. 30 minutes, okay, now we're talking. I think ideally 15 is where you'd like to get to. It will take some time. I want to do this sustainably. One of the things I'm the most proud of is that as we've done all this, whether it's regionalization, the evening service, the higher frequency, we have never had to cancel a service expansion. Anytime we've done something to improve the experience for the riders, they've been able to count on that being in there in perpetuity. So I want to make sure that if we do something, the funding is sustainable.
That's a good track record.
Yeah, and you can count on it, because as soon as we betray that trust with the riders, it doesn't matter how great the next thing I launch is. If they think it might be gone in a year or two, you can't, if you're deciding where am I going to live, where am I going to work, where am I going to go to school, those are multi-year commitments. You have to know that that transportation system you're trusting and counting on is going to be there long term.
Are you satisfied with your messaging? You're doing a great job of your messaging right here tonight. But is there outreach to have people understand much of what you've told us, which many people may not know, about the extent of the service, the affordability of the service, the reliability of the service? How do you reach out to the community so that you can build your ridership even more?
To being present. And this kind of goes to one of your earlier questions about one of the reasons we're looking to divest of school. MTA has operated school bus service in the city for over 50 years. It has been a phenomenal partnership, but it was always something that was ancillary to transit. It never impacted the transit service. That's what we're a transit authority. We do that first. We'd always been able to meet the needs of school, and it was fine. It's its own totally segregated business unit within MTA, because none of the federal funds can be used for school. So the finances are 2 sets of books. We have 2 income statements, 2 balance sheets. That driver shortage has pulled all of us away. So, I may be out driving a South Side or a Highland route this afternoon, and that means I didn't get work done, but it also meant that maybe I wasn't at the downtown committee for the Chamber of Commerce, or I wasn't at an AARP, or I missed chances to get out into the community and have these type of discussions so that people know. Because if you just rely on social media or website, those are people who find you because they already went looking. We want to get that message out to people who have no idea what they're missing.
Yeah, and there's
Surprise, look what you can do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ward meetings where, I'm just thinking this would be perfect for a ward meeting. Have have Mike give a, 10-minute presentation, because that's how you get the message. We usually think of, police, health department, planning, but the MTA, hearing all this positive.
As all of those.
The board doesn't hear this from the Manchester Transit?
We do periodically, but not often.
Yeah.
Pat's talking, bring the public in to a ward meeting.
To a ward meeting. Bring Mike into a ward meeting to get this stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very
That's
impressive.
what we just did right here.
That's very
Exactly.
impressive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
Mike, I don't want to cut you off, but I have something I want to talk with Pat about. We were mentioning, but if there's anything that you think you haven't said that you'd like to say, we got a few minutes left. I think you made an excellent case for what you do when you're as the executive director, which turns out to be an awful lot more than I would have ever guessed, including driving school buses.
So working for me.
Anything else? Anything else that we haven't asked you about? You'd like to know? People watching this show know about?
Yeah, it would just be to express thanks, both to the city, to Alderman Long for his leadership, Mayor Craig, Mayor Gatsis before her. The partnership with the city is fundamental to everything. MTA's annual operating budget is just below $10 million. About 1.3, 1.4 of that comes from the city. So it's 10 to 15%. But because it's local match, as Pat knows, that goes away. Everything, that's the house of cards. The whole thing kind of collapses. So even through all these regionalization efforts, the support of the city of Manchester has been what's fundamental and allowed all of this to happen. Without the city, we have no system. And then to thank the drivers, because especially in a driver shortage, but every year, they're on the front lines. They're the people that when people talk about how much they enjoy riding the bus and how great the service is, they're not talking about me. They're talking about the people behind the wheel who go out there and run the miles.
And interact
they do
with
a
them,
great job.
No, I would just like to point out, without the transit authority, the city wouldn't be what it is. So
exactly.
it's like that.
Exactly.
That did trigger one more question I wanted to ask you about.
You're never going to get to that
Sorry.
level.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
We'll have Pat back.
No, I'm enjoying this myself. I'm enjoying it.
we had a huge, from my point of view, success in the last Congress with the Infrastructure Act, which has provided lots more money we've ever had to support many infrastructure, including public transportation, rail, and so forth. Is some of this going to be of benefit to Manchester Transit? Is there going to be additional federal funds come in to upgrade your services? Does this act help you?
Absolutely. So this makes some of those things that were always kind of just aspirational. You want to talk about the transit center. I mean, that's a huge project. That's probably a $23 to $25 million construction project. That is not the type of thing that we do every day. That's only going to be feasible because of the federal money that's available that will pick up a significant portion of that share. The challenge, as it always is going to come down to local, whether it's city, state, the surrounding communities. It's kind of building together a coalition that lets you leverage that federal money. If you don't have the local, you have nothing.
Are you in the process, when you're not too busy with immediate needs like driving school buses, of getting applications in for some funding through this act? Is it the regulations written? Is the money ready to come your way?
So we're ready for when the applications are made available. So the FTA does it periodically throughout the year. So there'll be a competitive program, and we're just looking for one that kind of fits. They're always tailored to different census tracts or different economic conditions, different regional climate-related pieces. One of the challenges here is a good problem to have, but we're not in what's known as an area of non-attainment for emissions. So a lot of the congestion mitigation, air quality funds, they're not. There are so many parts of the country that do qualify. Nothing kind of comes down. So it's about kind of being there for everything. And one of the things that I do that I think is important, but it kind of gets easy to miss, busy as we are, we will take a week in May and we'll go to Oklahoma City. All of the small urban and rural transit systems all come together for 1 week once a year. And we all throw this stuff back at the wall. Okay, what worked out here? What did Oregon do? What's Michigan do?
Well, yeah, I think that's very
I'm
important.
no genius. I don't have all of the answers.
Yeah.
But if I can get together in a convention center with 800 or 900 other people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing, then collectively we can come up with a lot of good ideas.
I bet you do. And it's very important that you be able to do that. I'm sure. That kind of outreach and communication with your peers around the country.
Gotta
Maybe
do it in the
even
summer,
beyond the
though,
country.
so that we don't have to drive those school buses.
Right?
Well, and pushing, we're pushing bike riding, we're pushing getting vehicles off the street. I mean, there are some
Oh, yeah.
clogged up areas where this would help. So, I mean, like the airport, the FTA is just as important, in my
I've
opinion,
always
as
groused
the
about
airport.
how much Manchester tries to favor drivers of private cars, with a constant concern we don't have enough parking in the city. And I think, I would like to see a whole paradigm shift to, get away from that for many reasons, economic, environmental, many reasons.
Park
Yeah.
at North End Plaza, East Side Plaza, and take the bus in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, this has been really interesting, Mike. I thank you so much for what you're doing. It's very impressive, and we certainly learned a lot. Pat, do you want to say anything about what you were telling me about first?
No.
We got a couple
We're
of
good.
minutes. We got a couple of minutes.
We're
don't-
good. No,
There's not probably not enough time to start in.
I was glad I was here to hear this.
It was really
sometimes you're-
fascinating. We have to have you back.
Live,
I mean, the
live TV.
proactiveness is.
I think we're very
is what
fortunate.
is
We have you
fantastic.
as our transit director. You seem to be a hands-on
Absolutely.
guy and a
Yep.
forward-looking guy. I think that's absolutely terrific.
I'll talk
Well-
buses anytime you want.
Okay.
For a whole hour.
I tell you one thing you got to fix. Your voicemail's not working. I left messages on your voicemail and never heard back.
Yes.
And then I called up and I asked, I want to talk to an employee, and the employee was Cheryl.
Yep.
And she says, "Hello, Bacchus Meyer." I said, "What? Did I doubt myself?" Well, she used to work at our office. I don't know
Yes.
if you know that. She's quite a gal.
Yeah,
She's
she
one
was
of your-
able to track me down and connect us.
and
Manchester
connected,
is
and
just
thank
a
God
big
that you
town,
were available.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Just a big
Something's
town.
wrong there, though. You got to fix that. Your voice messages are not getting to you.
Yes. Yeah.
He was
Okay.
ignoring you, Bob. He was ignoring you. You're right out on TV. You're outing yourself.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, folks, this has been, I think, a terrific hour to inaugurate our first podcast.
I hope our podcast
I hope I
listeners
figure out how to
enjoyed
get
it.
that so I could check it out myself. And thanks again to your wonderful daughter for all she's done for us. And we will be back next week. We'll come
I'll
up
be
with a
here with
good
you.
program. I hope we've had a couple of really good ones here recently, and this was certainly a good one. And thank you both. Sorry we shortchanged you, Pat, but you'll be available and you can come back. And it was very, very, very excellent. Thank you all. So we'll see you next time, folks. Take care. Enjoy President's Day.